The lair stank of blood and sweat when it was done. The beast was larger than I expected, its bones still cooling in the snow where it fell. We searched for what scraps it left behind, crude trophies, broken things, the remnants of a life lived on hunger and rage. Not much worth keeping, but enough to remind us how close Mosley had come to trouble. On the way out, Barlin kicked a pile of bones. Out slid a letter, stiff with age, its seal long broken. The address was plain enough, destined for a blacksmith in Erast. Why it lay here, hidden in ogre's spoils, I couldn't yet say, but such things don't end up buried by chance. We made camp a fair distance from the lair. None of us wanted the stink of it clinging to us in our sleep. Sometime in the night, a snarl cut through the dark, a wild dog, lean and starving. Issue was on watch and fended it off before the rest of us had even found our feet. Out here, even the smallest teeth can find your throat. Come morning, the ache in my arm was back. Anther brewed one of her tonics. Bitter as bark, but it worked. I felt the joint loosen, the weight ease from her shoulder. Later that day, she went searching for what she called congealed strands, a substance she claims lets her sense the winds of magic. As we sat around in the cold of the morning, the letter we found weighed heavy on our thoughts, and the named Earth seemed to call louder with each sentence in the conversation. We decided to strike north, to Erast and the blacksmith. Apollo and I reading the land, the others following in silence. Snow, stone and wind, nothing more. By fortune or favour, we reached Erast unscathed. The town was a welcome sight, smoke on the air, and a ring of a hammer on anvil. We found rest, food, and for the first time in many nights I slept without pain. The next morning we delivered the letter to the blacksmith. He read it in silence, then nodded once and offered to mend Ben's warhammer free of charge. The lad near burst with pride. We'd begun to settle when the word came from a farmer at the edge of town. Her husband was missing, taken in the night by shapes she swore were not human. Folk whispered of the old sewer system to the northeast, and of the dead stirring below. I knew the place by reputation. The sewers weren't dwarven work, too wide, too tall, but the remnants of an older people, long gone before the snows claimed this land. They say an age ago this valley was green and rich, cities rising where now only frost and ruin remain. Then came the great winter, born of pride and folly, folk reaching higher than sense allowed, tearing at the fabric of the world until it bit back. All that's left of them now are bones under ice and tunnels like these, carved to serve cities that no longer stand. The sewers haven't carried water in 1,000 years, now they only carry echoes, and worse. Still, a man's life was at stake, so once more we went down into the dark. Apollo took point, lantern held high. Its light danced off slick walls, turning the shadows into shapes best not looked at for too long. The rest of us followed in silence, blades drawn but half hidden beneath the low hung of dripping stone. It wasn't just the dark down here, it was the weighty gears, pressing close, whispering that the living had no place here. Apollo's light caught on something ahead, pale shapes beneath the water, bones, picked clean and scattered, half buried in the muck. Rusted blades lay among them, the kind once carried by soldiers. Scratch marks on the stone told the rest, as if something had clawed its way free. Skeletal warriors, or what was left of them. Then came the sound, the faint clatter of bone echoing through the dark. We froze. Whatever haunted these halls was awake now, and moving. Keeping quiet, we pressed on, Apollo's lantern dimmed to a whisper. Ishi spotted a glint ahead, and found an old stash tucked beneath a broken archway. He'd just started to sift through it when the sound came again, bones scraping on stone. 3 shapes moved in the dark beyond the light, their eyes burning gold. The dead had found us. One lunged at Apollo. He caught the blow on the flat of his blade, sparks bursting like fireflies. His counter-strike bit deep, shattering the ribs, but the thing kept on coming. The second came for me. Its blade caught my arm, drew blood. I met it head-on, drove my shoulder in and split it from spine to skull. Pain fled, but I stood. The third turned on Apollo. Its blade cutting his shoulder, blood spilled, but he didn't fall. Anther's voice rose then, steady, strong. Her hands flared gold, and the warmth flooded through me, washing away the pain. For a heartbeat, the cold and fear vanished. Apollo fought back hard, but the dead don't tire. Another blow came and he went down, lantern crashing on the floor, plunging us into dark. I waded in, Locked and weapons we won, but it was fast. Too bloody fast. We grappled in the black, neither of us giving ground. Ben saw Apollo fall and charged, roaring, his warhammer crashing through bone and iron, one skeleton gone in a burst of shards. Balin came right behind him, striking hard but glancing off its ribs. She followed and caught a wound, blood streaking his side. I tried again, the thing's blade bit into my shoulder. Then Ben stepped up once more. Hammer low, swing clean. The blow shattered the last of them. Silence followed. Anther's magic found me again, the wound sealing under her touch. Then issues. When the warmth faded, we were whole enough to keep moving. We pressed deeper through the sewers, the walls closing in, the air thick with old death. Then we heard it again, rattling from far ahead. We held our ground at the mouth of a long corridor, narrow and slick. Shadows stirred at the far end. Balin raised his crossbow and fired, dropping the first skeleton clean. Two more stumbled into view. I charged and met one halfway, Morningstar smashing through its chest. It fell in pieces at my feet. Balin's second shot took the next one through the skull, but for a moment there was silence again, until another came lurching out the murk. I met it head on and cut it down. We barely had time to breathe before Ben found a side chamber, barrels in the corner. He went to look and triggered a trap. A rusted contraption snapped around his leg. Ishi rushed in, calm as ever, and freed him with a flick of his knife. With Ben limping but alive, we pressed on, following the sounds of the restless dead. Balin led us over a narrow sewer stream and into another chamber. Two skeletons stood watch over a small cache of supplies. Balin fired first, his bolt shattering one, and I charged and cut down the second. Ishi, not to be outdone, stepped in and dispatched a third that rose from the dark beyond. He moved to inspect the cache, and nearly lost his head to a ceiling blade. It swung down with a hiss, missing him by inches. He laughed it off, but it left us all watching our steps. Then we heard it again, the sounds of more bones stirring in a nearby passage. We fell back to a doorway, forming up. Two skeletons emerged. I cut the first apart. Balin fired and missed. Ben pushed past me to crush the last with a single blow. The sewers fell silent once more. We searched further and found a final chamber, larger, filled with pipes and machinery for the gods knows what purpose. There, slumped against the far wall, was the farmer's husband, pale, breathing shallow. Two skeletons stood over him, weapons crossed. Balin struck the first, dropping one with a single bolt. Ishi and I moved in together, blades flashing, and the last fell to pieces between us. The man was weak but alive. Behind him, a narrow stair led deeper still, the dark yawning below. Another path for another day. We carried him out through the winding tunnels, our boots heavy and the air thick with victory. Along the way we found Apollo, battered, dazed but breathing. He'd been knocked cold, not killed. By dawn, the light of Erast greeted us. We returned the farmer's husband to his wife. She met us with tears in her eyes and pressed 2 gold marks into my hand. Not much, but it meant the world to her, and that's worth more than gold. That night we sorted through what we'd dragged from the dark, weapons, armour, trinkets, enough to make the risk worthwhile. The dead rest now, the living breathe, and the band's purses are a little heavier. Down below, the sewers still whisper, but for tonight, that's someone else's problem.